But neither Fullerton nor Smith argued that free coloreds should have civil equality with whites. John Lewis, a white English lawyer, was an opponent of Woodford. Lewis once argued the case of the free coloreds as a paid advocate. He did a poor job. Chief Justice George Scotland was the first genuine white liberal in high office, but his administration started after the struggle for civil equality had come to an end. The Free Coloreds petition for equality did not have the support of any whites, nor do we know of any white group which petitioned on behalf of the Free Coloreds, as was done in Jamaica and St. Kitts. In the post-1825 phase of the movement, Derrida was joined by Abbey Power, a rebel Irish Roman Catholic priest from Grenada. Both was expelled from the island, but later returned and was reconciled to the church. Though Fullerton and Young failed the test as white liberals, the Free Coloreds did recognize that during their administration, a less hostile attitude emanated from the governors themselves. Fullerton tried to act legally, and this alone won him the reputation as a friend of coloreds. Colonel Young, commander of the troops, who once acted for Woodford during the latter's absence, had a tolerant attitude to coloreds, but not wishing to anger Woodford, did not reverse any of his policies. In the end, Fullerton's and Young's reputed friendliness to coloreds was a matter of personal attitude and not favorable legislation. But personal attitude was important to oppressed free coloreds looking for relief. On the whole, Trinidad had no friendly governor who took the lead on behalf of free coloreds. All right, so that is my reading from Cedulants and Capitulants. And now I'm going to go to Immigration into the West Indies in the 19th century. I think this particular book by K.O. Laurence should be of interest to most Africans who live in Trinidad. And now we're coming around to emancipation. What this book actually deals with is what happened after emancipation and how the plantation owners substituted labor for Africans who they refused to enrich, because after the apprenticeship period, the Africans started asking for a living wage that would have allowed them to be comfortable. And the whites did not want to enrich Africans, so they resorted to bringing individuals to work in Trinidad under contract, which everyone knows today as indentureship. All right, so let me read. Since so many Indians did not take up the return passage when they fell due, it is not surprising that the planters and colonial officials soon came to regard such passages as unnecessary and costly obligation, and from 1850 onwards repeatedly urged their withdrawal. The planters argued that returning to the lower standard of life and rigorous caste system of India ought to be discouraged, that those who wished to return could well afford to pay their own passage, a half-truth at best, and that many of those who returned did so merely because the trip was free. The India government consistently objected to such proposal until 1891, when renewed pressure led them to accept the suggestion of their own emissary, Surgeon Major Cummins. that immigrant be required to contribute towards their return passages unless they were destitute or disabled, while persons emigrating from a second time should have no return passage entitlement. In 1895, therefore, a contribution of 25% for men and 16 2/3% for women came into force. These rates were doubled in 1898 when, in the view of serious depression in the sugar industry, the colonial office determined to reduce the cost of immigration. The coming of the return passage contribution seems not to have been any serious deterrent to the emigrants. It had no significant effect on recruitment, with the result that the colonies renewed their demand for the total abolition